Alright, today I'm going to teach you how to hand sew on your pillow. You should have a small opening that you left after you flipped your material right side out. You poked those corners using a stick. You now have a small opening that we need to close. We want to do this by hand sewing so that we have a nice pretty stitch, a nice stitch that isn't going to show a seam that's not going to be on the outside as if we were using a machine. The four things that we need in order to hand stitch are your shears, your thread, a hand sewing needle, which you'll get from Mrs. LaFrance, and you'll also return to Mrs. LaFrance when you finish, and then your pillow. Alright, I'm now ready to begin my hand stitching process. So I'm going to take the spool of thread and I'm going to unwind enough thread so that it goes all the way down the length of your pillow and back. Now your pillow is square, so all sides are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which side you do that. I right now have the pillow in between my legs and I have the opening facing upwards. So I've just done a length and a half of your thread, and then go ahead and take your shears and cut it. I'm then going to take the end of your thread, and there's a small hole at the top of the needle, which is called the eye of the needle. I'm going to take the thread and put it through the eye of the needle. A good suggestion, make sure you're holding on to the end of that thread so it can get through the eye of the needle easily. Pull it through just a little bit, a couple of inches. I'm then going to hold on to the short end of the thread and the longer end of the thread, and I'm going to make some knots. So I'm just going to go over and under and then make the knot right on top of that pointer finger. Then you're going to do another one, over and under. And then hold your finger underneath that knot. I'm trying to get my finger under there. Hold your finger underneath that knot so the knot goes right on top of the other one. I'm going to do one more. Over and under. So I've done 3 knots, and the reason I put my finger there is I don't want that knot to go right next to the eye of the needle. Alright, I've just done the knots to the eye of the needle, 3 of them. I'm now going to do the exact same thing to the end of my thread. So over and under. Now the important part here, you don't have to leave your finger, but it's going to be important that you make those knots exactly on top of one another. This is my 3rd time. Oop, that one I did not get right on top of the other, so that one does not count. I need to do another one. This is a little bit tricky. You've got to really pay attention to it and try to get them right on top of each other. 3. I'm going to try to do about 5 of them. I want that knot to be thick enough so it will not go through my pillow. Okay, so I've done 5 knots. You can see that little circle. I'm now ready to begin stitching. Alright, so I'm sitting with my pillow in between my legs, and the opening is outward, not towards me. This way I can work towards myself when I'm actually stitching. So I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to make my first incision through the patchwork side right above where those stitches are. So you can see the opening and then you can see my stitches. I want to start a little bit above it. Pull it all the way through until it's nice and tight. Do you see how it's caught here? That's what you want. Then you're going to bring your thread over. So now it's coming to the right of me, back to the patchwork side. I'm holding with my left hand the patchwork, the end of the pillow, so that it's nice and tight. I'm going to come right next, so coming towards myself, I'm going to do an incision or go with the end of my needle through the edge of the stitching. Now as I'm kind of pulling this, I'm making sure that knot stays to the right. Now you're probably thinking, hold on, I've got extra threads over here, what's the deal? We will cut all of those threads at the end, it's okay. So I just made my first stitch. So now I'm going to come, put my thread to the right, Alright, right, so I just did my first stitch. I'm ready to do my next one. I'm holding the end of my pillow with my left hand. I'm going through the top part of the opening. Make sure your threads don't get caught in each other. We want nice, clean stitches, and pull it nice and tight. Come back, do it again. Try to make sure your incision mark, where you're putting your needle, is at the same width and length apart from each other. You want to make sure they're nice and even all the way across. Also making sure that you're not getting any of your threads caught. So I still have a tail from where I began, but I'm making sure that doesn't get caught in anything else.
Mommy, yes. Mommy, yes.
Alright, I'm almost to the end of my stitches. You'll notice how they're a nice even width apart from each other, and I'm trying to consistently put them in the same spot. I understand it's not going to be exactly perfect. I just want you to take your time. This is not a race. So I'm still holding the end of that pillow with my left hand, and I keep going on the right hand side in. So I'm going to do one more loop, and then I'm ready to tie a knot. I'm actually going to do one more. It didn't quite close the way I wanted it to. Alright, so how do you close the end? You're actually going to come through that last loop that you just did with the end of your needle. Go through the end of that loop. So you've kind of made a circle with your thread. You're then going to put your needle through the circle. Pull that nice and tight. Do that one more time. Go through the circle, or make a circle. Go through it with your needle, so we're making a knot. Alright, so now I'm ready to lock my stitches. I'm at the end. So I'm going to take the end of my needle, and I'm going to actually go through that last stitch and make a circle. So my needle is coming out one side and my thread is coming out the other. And then I'm going to take the end of my needle, go underneath the circle, and pull it nice and tight. Do that one more time. So I'm going through that last stitch. My needle's to the right, my thread is to the left. I'm then going to go through the circle and pull that nice and tight. Then I'm ready to clip what I call the tails. So cut it as close as you can without actually cutting those threads, and we are going to cut that first tail as well. You are now done with your hand stitching. So you are now ready to take the thread. You need to cut the end because we knotted it. So you need to cut that end thread. Completed your hand stitching, you then need to cut the knot off the end, so cut the thread that has the knot off the end of the needle, the eye of the needle. You then need to return the needle to Mrs. LaFrance, and then you need to make sure you pin with one of your ballpoint pins your instructions and rubric, making sure your first and last name and hour is on those to the correct 5th or 6th hour spot. Then you need to get a clean out checkout list, and we are ready to go. You completed your pillow! Yay!